Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first party data webinar. Thank you, all of you, for joining us this morning. My name is Jodie Cohen, and I'm just going to give you a very brief introduction. I am from Savant Events. We're working with ZiaTap on the webinar this morning. As you know, the webinar this morning is focusing on first-party data, very specifically how you can turn your first-party data into actionable intelligence to better understand customers and ultimately drive your bottom line. So I hope that you find the presentation useful. Stefan Blumenthal will remain on the line after the presentation has run. You do have a function to ask questions, so if any questions come into your mind while the presentation is running, please type those into the question tab, and I will make sure that I ask those to Stefan once the session has finished. So I will very shortly hand over to Stefan, and I hope that you enjoy the talk.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And welcome everybody to the webinar on how you can turn first-party data into actionable customer intelligence. So I'm super happy to shed a little bit more light on this topic, and I'm looking forward to discuss all your questions afterwards. So yeah, let's start with the webinar. Yeah, marketers' goals haven't changed. It's still to better understand customers. And the reality shows that this is not really the case, to be honest. We have here a few studies and quotes from famous and big brands like Salesforce, BCG, Forbes, and Forrester, and that shows that brands fail a little bit to use their data, their first-party data, and that they don't really understand their customers across devices. For example, 43% of brands fail to use even half of their CRM systems correctly. A lot of brands cannot make connections across consumer touchpoints and identify the same consumer or customer across devices. Brands struggle to integrate offline to online data. So, for example, match an email address or telephone number with a cookie or mobile ad ID, or online to online data. If the same user is browsing on my website and is using my app, so a connection between cookies and mobile ad IDs, for example. And it takes a long time to analyze campaigns and to get the campaign results back into different BI tools or CDPs and different platforms to optimize my marketing campaigns in a data-driven way. I think, real customer understanding is super important to drive results. If a brand has a strong customer understanding, they are able to predict behavior and, for example, recommend better content or products, or what kind of articles should I read, or what kind of products I might be interested in. So, as you know, you want to have a great customer experience across devices. You want to be identified across devices, and and that really drives customer experience, and at the end improves marketing results and delivers a better ROI. And it's super important that marketers and brands invest in customers that are really worth it. So, for example, as a brand, I want to know a lot about my top value customers, because I don't want that they change to my competitor. And so I need a lot of information, for example, to calculate churn propensities. That's super important for all brands and companies that have subscription models, a subscription-based business with their customers, like telcos, utility companies, insurances, banks. They don't want to lose top clients, and they need more information to predict if there is a high churn risk, and then they need to act if that's the case. Then I want to have more information on customers that are quite loyal to me, but perhaps could spend more. So I want to know more about their interests. What kind of desires do they have? What kind of life situations are they? Are they moving at the moment? are they getting kids and so on, to have some potential for cross and upselling. And of course, I want to have more of my top customers. Yeah, I want to create lookalikes or statistical twins of my top value customers to attract more of them in my prospecting or new customer acquisition campaigns. But there are still many marketing questions that that are unanswered. For example, how do I unify and aggregate all my first-party data coming from different sources like the CRM, website, app, shop, and so on in one consolidated view in one platform? How do I get more information on customers beyond the information I already have? A lot of brands, for example, just have a phone number or an email address or a name, and they need more information on their customers. How do I figure out the propensities for my customers to accept an upsell or retention offer or any other offer? And which customers should I invest my budget in? What kind of target group segments are the segments I should invest my marketing money in? For example, I want to have lookalikes of my top customers and so on and so forth. I think, there are a lot of different approaches that came up in the last years to solve these problems. And there is an evolution in marketing technology. It all started, around 10 years ago with programmatic advertising, contextual data, contextual advertising, in digital marketing or programmatic. And then 5 to 10 years ago, everybody wanted to implement a DMP. All the publishers, e-commerce platforms, they all are thinking about or were thinking about a data management platform. So where you can aggregate data, for example, from website visitors and based on third-party cookies, and you can then create segments and use the segments in for example, for personalization or marketing, or for monetizing traffic on my website. Then CDPs came up, where you can aggregate more first-party data in one platform, like for example from different sources like a CRM, a website, an app, and a CDP. Basically, there you can aggregate the data, you can create segments and push the segment into different marketing platforms. A CDP is more first-party data-centric than a DMP is. And the new thing, the next evolutionary phase is a customer intelligence platform where you have CDP functionalities plus more intelligence, and I'm happy to talk about that in the next minutes. So how to really drive customer understanding? As I said, it's super important that you aggregate and unify the data coming from different sources. So you want to have all your data in one platform, all your customer-centric data. So who's visiting my website? Who's using my app? What kind of data do I have from about my existing clients? There are different taxonomies. There are different silos. You don't want to have silos anymore. You want to have a unified view on your customers and your potential customers. The next step here is that you need an identity resolution. So you need to close the gap between the different identifiers. You want to know, when you, for example, have an email address of your customers, you want to know, okay, what's the corresponding cookie or mobile ad ID so that I can reach them online and or mobile. And this is super important that you have the different identifiers of the same customer or the same user. You want to enrich your data. So you might not know everything about your customers, so you need reliable third-party data to enrich your first-party data with more information. Then when you have a lot of information about every single customer, you can create scoring models, or you can bring your machine learning algorithms to predict behavior. And at the end, activate the right users in the right platforms for targeting, for example, in social media, programmatic, and so on. And perfect is it when you feedback or loop back all your measurement and attribution, all the tracking tracking of clicks, conversions, and so on, back into the same platform to optimize your audiences, to optimize your marketing activities. Yeah, this is a typical CDP stack. And as I said, what a CDP is doing is aggregating data from different sources, from email campaigns, CRM, shops, e-commerce websites, apps, and so on. You can segment your data and then push it into different marketing channels. What's missing here in most of the CDPs is an identity resolution and a deterministic identity resolution to really get all the identifiers of a user, to do cross-device targeting, to match offline with online data or online with online data. And most of the platforms are not really offering reliable third-party data to enrich my first-party data in the CDP, to create accurate lookalikes with more scale, or to run, for example, predictive models in a GDPR compliant way. Because normally what a CDP can do is push segments or create segments of users. But if you want to have more information on a single user in a 360-degree view on a single user, you need to have a GDPR compliant environment like a data clean room to run the analytics here based on a single user, based on a single customer view, and then activate again segments in the different platforms. I will talk about that later in more detail. So identity resolution, as I said, it's super important to complete your device graph here. A lot of brands just have perhaps a cookie or a mobile ad ID, or a telephone number or an email address of their users. And when you want to communicate in a unified way across different devices, you need the different identifiers of a user. So you need to solve the identity problem here. Of course, third-party cookies are dying. We all know that. It will take 1 or 2 years, and then there is a big tracking problem in the whole industry, but there are some solutions here. So how will identity look without cookies? Just quickly, just one slide about that. I think you can operate within the walled gardens, within Google and Facebook. You might have accurate data here, but it's quite restricted. You cannot get any data out of the walled gardens. When you put or give data inside the walled gardens, it's you don't have any control. Then there are some initiatives like we are working on and will launch soon an identity called an ID called ID Plus, which is based on first-party data, for example, login data coming from publishers. When the user's logging in, we will, based on the hashed email address, create an ID Plus, and this ID can talk to different players in the programmatic ecosystem. We are connected with all the DSPs, SSPs, so that we can identify a user across different devices, across different websites, apps, and so on, based on a universal ID, which is GDPR compliant and could, for example, replace a cookie. And then there are other unified ID-based approaches, like unified ID by the Trade Desk or DigiTrust initiative by the IAB, but they are mostly cookie-based. The second big challenge is the incomplete first-party data. So I might know the age or the gender of my customer when a customer is buying something in my shop or on my website, but but I would need more information to really address the customers well. I need to have more information on the interests and what kind of apps are my customers using, what kind of websites are they visiting, what kind of products are they searching for. So there are in some DMPs, CDPs, there are data marketplaces, which is not bad, but I think there is a challenge. You don't know how the data is, or how the segments in data marketplaces are built. Where's the data coming from? Is it probabilistic or deterministic data? So you don't know if it's GDPR compliant. You don't know much about the quality. So best case, you have a curated or unified third-party data source where the provider is doing the work for you. For example, Zeotap, we are just accepting. Sorry for that. We are just accepting third-party data coming from more than 100 data sources in our platform, which we tested against Nielsen, which we tested against Facebook data, for example, when it comes to social demographic data, and where we know where the data is coming from, where we know this is a real purchase intent, for example, and we are only accepting, for example, 10% of the data partners that we initially talked to, because we really test the data against quality when it comes to social demographic data, for example, against on-target reach. Is this really accurate data? Is it deterministic data? And we tested against GDPR compliance. So just accept consented data, for example. So this is very important when it comes to third-party data. You need really high-quality data, and it's a lot of work to check that, to test that. This is really a big challenge. So what is customer intelligence now? Customer intelligence is the process of gathering and analyzing information regarding customers and their details and activities to build deeper and more effective customer relationships and improve decision-making. So I can explain just quickly what we are doing. We are driving customer intelligence in one platform because we offer CDP functionalities, I would say basic CDP functionalities, like, for example, you can aggregate all your data coming from different sources, CRM, web, app, and your second-party data that you might have in one platform. We unify the taxonomy so that you can create segments and push the segments into different channels. We are connected with more than, 100 marketing channels, like DSPs like the Trade Desk, TV360, AppNexus, MediaMath, and so on. We are connected to social networks like Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on, and other channels, like Taboola and a lot of other marketing channels. So you can aggregate your first-party data, segment it, and push it into different channels. What you see in the middle here is what we call our customer intelligence layer. You can use the different components here, but you don't have to. So what we offer and what we build is a deterministic identity resolution or identity graph. For example, we are getting from one data partner, hey, this email address 12345, this user logged in my platform, and this email address is corresponding to this cookie ID. So we have a deterministic link between the email address and the cookie. Then the user, or we're getting from another data partner, the user logged into via the app. So we are getting the same hashed email address, corresponds to this or is linked to this mobile ad ID. So we have a deterministic match between hashed email address, mobile ad ID, and cookie, and we could help brands to onboard offline data based on email addresses, hashed email addresses, and give them back the corresponding cookies and mobile ad IDs. Of course, just if the brand has a consent of the user to use the hashed email address and to do analytics and targeted advertising with the email address or based on the email address. Next step, we can enrich with the help of our data partnerships. As I said, we have 100 or more than 100 different data partners that provide us social demographic data, raw app usage data. So we get device ID 12345, yesterday used Spotify, Tinder, LinkedIn, baby phone apps, or travel apps, or running apps and fitness apps and everything. You know it, there is an app for everything. And based on the app usage, on other interest and browsing data or purchase intent data, so we see the user cookie 12345 put I don't know, sneakers in a shopping basket, or searched for a Mercedes-Benz at least 3 times in the last 30 days. So we can use this data to enrich the first-party data of a brand. And of course, we can create lookalikes, based on first-party data, based on matched first and third-party data, based on the insights we can give, and brands can bring the machine learning algorithms to, for example, run analytics in a data clean room in a GDPR-compliant way, run scoring models, and use those scores to segment the data or segment the users accordingly, and then push the right audiences in the different marketing channels. So as I said, this is our 360 degree device graph. So we can really link different identifiers of one user in a deterministic way, so that you have a 360 degree device graph here. And as I said, we can enrich the first party data to give you more information per customer. And this is really important when it comes to customer intelligence, to get more reliable information per customer, to know what kind of apps are they using, what kind of life situations, lifestyle are my customers into, and where do they live, what kind of age and gender do they have. Simple things, but I think a lot of customers don't really have those information. As I said, in a data clean room, it's a GDPR compliant way to match first-party data and third-party data, to run analytics, to predict behavior, and then activate the right audiences in the different marketing platforms. I can talk more about that if you are interested in it. It's super interesting for data science teams. It's super interesting for all brands who want to run scoring models, for example, to predict if there is a high churn risk. When you are running, when you run models, you need reliable, high quality data to feed your algorithms, because when you have good data, then you have better results in your analytics. And you can predict, for example, how high is the probability that those users are pet owners or young families, and so on and so forth. And we can help by developing scoring models as well. If you don't have your own algorithms, you could bring into as well. And of course, last step is, you want to feedback your campaign results into the platform again to optimize your audiences. And you could, for example, close gaps between offline purchases or offline sales and online marketing campaigns. Because when, for example, I buy a product in a shop, or a service, or sign a contract with a telco, for example, I do it in the shop, and I leave my email address. So you could then use this hashed email address to match it in an ID graph with a corresponding mobile ad ID and cookie. And when you know that this cookie or this mobile ad ID 2 weeks ago saw your campaign, on the last month saw your campaign, then you know, okay, this campaign had an impact on the customer, because now the same customer, based on the email address, I know it, bought now the product in the shop. So you can close the gap between offline sales and online marketing campaigns. This is one example. So my recommendations, guys, set up a solid identity strategy that's cookieless and reliant on permanent identifiers. So you should really incentivize your customers, your users, your website visitors to register, to log in, so that you have a hashed email address, so that links to a cookie, or develop an app and push your app, because a mobile ad ID is a more permanent identifier than a cookie. Cookies are dying. So you should really build up your first-party data based on login data. This is really my recommendation here. And what's super important, ask for any permissions. Yeah, you need to ask your customer and your website visitors if you are allowed to use their hashed email addresses, their PII or personal data like cookies, email addresses, and so on for targeted advertising, for product development, for analytics, for combining it with other data, for example, interest data, and important, share it with a third party. To run those analytics, for example. Enrich your first party data. I think it's still a challenge to gather a lot of first party data. So you cannot know everything about your customers. You cannot ask them everything. Rely on external curated and high quality data to complete your profiles. And then at the end, predict segments or predict behavior. You should run or apply predictive behavioral segmentation based on propensity models on your first-party data, which you combine with third-party data to really predict behavior and make better decisions in your marketing strategies. Thank you very much. I'm super happy to answer all your questions now. Feel free to start.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Stefan. That was great. we're just moving Stefan from his presentation mode into joining me on the stage so that we can answer questions. We do already have a couple of questions from the listeners. Hi, Stefan. Hi. Thank you so much for that. It was really, really fascinating. And it has prompted a couple of questions in the audience, which I'll ask you in a moment. But before we get on to those, I can see already quite a few of you are still online. So if you have any questions at all, just post them in the questions tab and I will ask Stefan as we go along. So the first question that we have from the audience, how do you measure prediction accuracy for purchases?
Yes, I mean, it's a little bit depending on where you activate the data and on if it's an online sale, for example, or if it's an offline sale. As I said in the attribution slide, it's possible, for example, to close the gap between offline sales and online campaigns when you, for example, activate the audiences in a campaign in Facebook or in a DSP. And then you want to measure the offline sales shop, and you want to link those sales to the online campaign. Then you can do it with an identity resolution. So you need to onboard the offline data again, and link the email addresses, for example, or hashed phone numbers to cookies and mobile ad IDs. And when you then know, okay, this cookie or this mobile ad ID saw my campaign and now purchase in the shop, then you know that that this is linked to each other, and you can measure and track that your campaign was successful. I mean, it's much easier with online sales. When you have an e-commerce shop, for example, you can just track the conversions and the sales in the corresponding campaign where you activate the audience, and then you know, okay, this is my predictive segment. Zeotap, for example, predicted and pushed me into my DSP, and now I have a lot of sales behind that, so it might be a successful campaign then, or a successful segment.
Great, wonderful. Thank you for that. I can see some more questions coming in, which is great. So I'm just going to roll through them because I know that the audience have quite a few things that they're keen to know. Next one, how do you identify a customer cross-device? Obviously, considering that customers use various different devices, is it a probabilistic way or deterministic way?
It's a deterministic way. So we are getting from our data partners, for example, login data. When we, for example, you're logging in, you're creating a profile at, for example, let's say at Immobilien Scout because you're searching for a new flat, or you are buying something in a shop and you need to check out with your email address, and you're doing it online, then we are getting from some partners the email address linked to a cookie, and from others the same email address linked to a mobile ad ID. So we can link, for example, the email address to the cookie and mobile ad ID, or even the cookie to the mobile ad ID in a deterministic way.
Okay, great, thank you. And how do you evaluate data that's not a social demographic? I have a question here. Are there what kind of tracking providers are there?
I think, yeah, for social demographic data, it's Nielsen or Facebook data, or in the meantime, our own golden truth set. So we have a lot of high quality data in the platform, and we can run data when we test it against our own golden truth set to measure the quality when it comes to age and gender. With interest data or intent data, it's difficult or more difficult to really test the quality. So we have some methodologies, for example, when it comes to intent data. So we see, or we accept intent data when we see there is a recency and frequency that we get from the data partners. For example, the same cookie or the same mobile ad ID searched at least 3 times in the last 7 days, or 3 times in the last 30 days for a product which is where the buying cycle is a little bit longer, like a car or a TV, compared to, for example, shoes or fashion and cosmetics and beauty products. It's 3 times in 7 days. For a car, 3 times in 30 days. And when a cookie is searching 3 times in 30 days, for example, for a car, then we say it's a car purchase intent. Or if the user is taking an action, for example, is putting something in a shopping basket, or is marking the product, or searching for the product a lot of times, then we say it's a purchase intent. And when it comes to interest data, then it's app usage data. So we really get the mobile ad ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 used this app in the last 7 or 10 or 30 days, and then we say it's a travel interest when, for example, the user used airline apps, or used Skyscanner or Kayak, and so on and so forth. And also interest data online is a little bit tricky, but I think you need to check the source. So what is interest for the data partner? And when we say, okay, that is a high interest for us as well, then it's good data. And but with interest data, it's a little bit more difficult. But I think purchase intent you can really check, and social demographic data as well.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions we've got, which you can see. So somebody has asked, can you start with having only the email addresses of your customers? You know, if that's the only kind of data you have, and if so, how does that process look?
Of course, yes. It's super important that you have the permission of the user to really, that you are allowed to use the email address for targeted advertising, for analytics, and to share it with a third party. This is super important. If you have this permission, you can share hashed email addresses, for example, with us, and we can match this email address to a mobile ad ID and a cookie, and then you can do different things. One use case is, for example, you want to exclude all your existing customers from your digital campaigns. So we can link the email address to mobile ad IDs and cookies, give you back this segment, and you can just exclude your existing clients from all your digital marketing, and you can reduce media wastage here. Or we can create lookalikes based on the data we have from these cookies and mobile ad IDs that we match to your email address. We can create lookalikes, find statistical twins, so IDs that are using the same apps, that have the same age, the same gender, have the same interest or desires, mobile purchase intents, and then we can create lookalikes and push you a lookalike segment of your existing clients, and you can activate this segment in DSPs or social. And we can give you insights, of course. We can say, hey, your existing clients are 55% female, 45% male, and they're using those apps, have those interests. We can give you back insights, and based on the insights, we can activate and push the right audiences for the next campaigns.
Great, wonderful. We've got the final question now that's been posted. So this is going to be the final question I posed to Stefan. If anyone else has any questions, now is the time to post them. The last one, I know that when we were putting together the session, we had a focus on security and privacy. So this is a good question as well. In a GDPR world that we're living in, what are some of the challenges in data integration that you foresee?
Yes, I think the main challenge is that you need to ask the user for permissions. I think what we see in Germany and in Europe, that actually a lot of brands missed to ask for permission. E-commerce brands, retailers, FMCG, a lot of brands failed or missed until now to really ask their customers for consent to use cookies, mobile IDs, email addresses for different purposes. Sometimes the purpose is not clear, and in most of the times, what's super important when you want to share, for example, hashed email addresses with analytics companies or a company for customer intelligence platform like Zeotap, you need even to have the consent that you can share the hashed email addresses with a third party. So you really need to inform the user, hey, I'm using your personalized or your PII in a pseudonymized way. I'm using it for targeted advertising, for analytics. I'm combining it with other data sources, and I'm sharing it with trusted partners. And this is really important. And I think this is the biggest challenge, to really inform the user what you're doing with the data, and it's super important. I mean, this is the purpose of GDPR, that you inform the user what you're doing with the data. And I think there is a big lack of generating permissions, implementing a consent management tool in the website, and just ask for permission. And when the user says, yeah, it's okay, and they are ticking the boxes, then you are allowed to use the data for analytics and to enrich the data and to work with the data.
Good, great. Okay, that's a useful answer. Thank you. So we've had quite a few questions to go through today. I do know that there were still quite a few people online, so that's great. Stefan is happy to follow up with any of you after the webinar has run if you have any other questions. But for now, I thank you very much, Stefan, for your time, and to everyone for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.